Hey guys, welcome back. So with continuing our coverage on Jonathan Hickman's new Ultimate Spider-Man series, for this one we're actually taking a step back and connecting the dots on Harry's story, where some of these things we kind of figured out on our own, but we come to the point now where a lot of these questions are just getting outright answered, allowing us to know for a fact where a lot of these pieces land. So let's get into it. But first, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so coming back, the current month that we've reached at this point in the story is the month of May. But to start this out, we actually go back several months ago to a significant memory of a conversation that Harry had with his father, Norman Osborn. Because at this point in time, both Norman and Emily, Harry's parents, they're waiting for Harry to show up at this event, and he's running late. And Norman's not happy about it. Because on one hand, his wife Emily is like, I'm sure Harry has a good reason, but Norman's just like, no, you're either supposed to be somewhere or you're not. Anything else is just an excuse. And for a moment here, his wife is even like, oh, and I suppose the great Norman Osborn has never been late to anything in his life. And he tells her something like, I was late once, never again. But while they're having this talk, Harry calls his mom, because of course he's not going to call his dad. And when this happens, Norman's like, nah, let me get that. So as you may have guessed, it totally catches Harry off guard, because he was hoping that his mom would answer, so he can more or less tell her I'll be there in 5, and pretty much avoid getting chewed out by his dad. But nah, Norman picks up and he's like, Harry, where are you? And you can tell at this point that Harry Osborn is very different than the 6160 Harry we know now. Because he's really laid back and he tells his dad and he's like, I'm just a couple blocks away. So Norman tells him like, son, I already told you how important this was. Only for Harry to respond like, look, I'm sorry dad, I'd tell you why I was late, but it wouldn't matter, would it? And I mean, Norman tells him no, because the reason why wouldn't matter, at least not to him. And following this, Norman asks him, Harry, what name do you bear? Which at first has Harry like, what? So Norman asks him again, what name do you bear? So Harry answers and he tells his father, Osborn. And this just drives home the point that his father's trying to make, because next he tells Harry it's a great name, it means something, and he goes on to ask, Harry, do you know what my favorite memory of you is? So Harry's like, yeah, the time we played catch, and Norman stops him right there, and he tells Harry, no, that's you, the little boy talking, and that memory, it's the memory of a child. My favorite memory of you is the day you finally started acting like a man, like an Osborn. The problem is, it hasn't happened yet. We're all waiting for you, Harry. How long are you going to make us wait? How much longer am I going to? And right here, in the middle of their conversation, a beam comes down from the Stark-Stain satellite, because this happened in the very moment where the Maker's Council launched their attack, framing Tony Stark. And man, I'm gonna tell you right now, when I first read this and I saw Norman on the phone with something coming down from the sky, my jaw literally dropped. And as you might imagine, this is when everything changed for Harry Osborn, after losing the both of his parents in the blink of an eye. And on top of being terrified and confused, there's also that thought of that was where he was supposed to be. But following this, a few weeks later, him and his wife Gwen make their way to see Norman's attorney, since Norman Osborn had almost the entirety of his estate and personal assets in a trust set to go to his family. But as it turns out, Harry and his wife Gwen are really the only family that's left. And for the most part, this process moves very quickly, with the exception of some of the details concerning the company itself, because that stuff still has to go through probate while the will is being executed, so the attorney tells them that portion may take up to 6 months. But when that's over, because Harry's the sole named beneficiary, he's going to take over controlling interest when it's all said and done. But until then, both him and Gwen, they're able to sit on the board, so for the time being they still have access and a level of control until all of this is settled and Oscorp belongs to Harry. But just before they're done, the attorney hands Harry a card with a king chess piece on one side, while letting him know that this was delivered to his office this morning for Harry. So Harry asks, what is it? And the attorney tells him, I have no idea what it means, but I do know who it's from. And so of course, just looking at the symbol on this card, this is clearly an invitation from the Kingpin. So the next day, Harry makes his way over to see Wilson Fisk, and with doing so, Harry's on time. And as soon as he gets there, Kingpin hits him with the whole do you know who I am kind of questioning. But it's actually here where we find out in this conversation where Harry tells Fisk that he knows the name Wilson Fisk because he's this huge entrepreneur and a very common name in the business world that everyone knows. But when Fisk asks him, can you tell me what they don't? It's here we discover after the fall of Stain Stark, with neither of those names having someone to step in and inherit them, rumors have increased of Wilson Fisk being the shadow governor of the greater New York area, as well as the Kingpin of Manhattan. So because of these recent events, Fisk has been stepping in and taking more control, so as a result, he's been given the name Kingpin. And he even admits that he likes to hear it out loud. And he's pretty straightforward with Harry, because he lets him know that he's brought him here to ask him for a favor. But right off the bat, Harry's like, hey, I'm not my father, I don't have his influence or his pedigree, and it's gonna take quite some time before Harry even gets to that point. But Fisk is not even concerned about that. So he steps in, much closer than any grown man would be comfortable with, and he tells Harry, because Obadiah Stane and Howard Stark both don't have any existing family to pass down their company to, I need someone to eliminate the remnants and keep it from rising again. Because without a question, the value in the company is still there. But Fisk can't be bothered to pick through it to see what's worth keeping and see what's not. So Harry tells him, with all due respect, that sounds like your problem, not mine. To where then Wilson Fisk says, not if I sell it to you. Which from here going forward, this starts to explain a lot of the hints that we saw earlier in this series, like the Stark Stain logo on Harry's suit. Because following this, we jump forward 2 weeks later, where we find Harry, Gwen, and Otto Octavius, where during this time, and still in the early phase, they've had Otto in charge of looking into a lot of the Stark Stain technology. And after Otto discovered a deleted reference to a hidden room, he was more or less like, okay, we gotta cut in here and see what's inside. And it took him 2 days to cut through what appeared to be 6-inch thick titanium walls, only for Otto to find out that the titanium wasn't exactly titanium, but instead a similar self-healing composite, which is why it took him so long to cut an opening into this room. And for a moment here, there's kind of this talk from Harry, like, imagine doing all that cutting and then there's nothing inside. Because there's no external power source leading in here. But when they make their way in, they find a ton of Howard Stark suits, along with a number of other projects that Howard was working on. And Otto Octavius, he was just amazed at all of this, because this whole room is running off an arc reactor, which for years he wanted to get his hands on one of those, and now he finally can. Because for him, he's like a kid walking into a candy store, and everything's free. So he heads over to the terminal, assuming that there's more information they can find there. So he asks Gwen if she wants him to look into it, and she gives him a quick yes, and Otto's more or less like, you don't have to tell me twice. But of course, right off the bat, Otto notices that he needs a password to get in. So Gwen tells him that's fine, they'll get a team on it, and they'll be able to crack it within hours, if not days. But in a matter of seconds, Otto's able to get in. And he tells them it was fairly simple since the password was Anthony with a 0 instead of an O, because parents and their kids, right? And Harry's just like, yeah, some of them, because he highly doubts that his father would have done something similar. And once Otto's logged in, it looks like they have access to everything here. Accounts and suit designs with other folders marked as maker or council, and plan cycles going up to 50 years. But as Otto's just drooling over all this information, Gwen's just like, wait a minute, Otto? And he's like, it's Dr. Octavius. So she's like, Otto, I'm gonna need you to sign an NDA. Because as it stands right now, Otto Octavius already has an NDA in place that he's agreed to. But now that they've seen what's in this room, Gwen's like, no, we're gonna need him to sign a new one with more teeth. And it's one of those things where Gwen knows whatever they put in this non-disclosure agreement, Otto Octavius is gonna agree to it, because he understands if he doesn't sign it, he doesn't get to play with the new toys. And you know Dr. Octavius is not having that. So right away, without even seeing the first draft, he just tells Gwen, where do I sign? So following this, we head over to what would now be 4 months ago, with Otto presenting to Harry the new suit that Harry requested, though with a few modifications, because for Harry, after reading Howard's notes, he's discovered that he has some bigger fish to fry, and that's why he asked Otto to make a suit for him. And right away with seeing this, Otto tells Harry that he knows Harry wanted to go with a darker color, but as it turns out, you can't just paint this stuff, but instead you gotta bond the pigments to the metal at a molecular level, and Otto would have brought it down to a darker shade, but then it started to look brown, so they had to go with what they got here. But nonetheless, Harry likes it, and after this he shows Harry one of the modular chambers, capable of rapid expansion, which at a first glance just looks like another bomb, but he goes on to let Harry know, depending on the payload, he can substitute the catalyst for an array of reactions, to where after that, Otto shows Harry the glider, which they're just calling the hovercraft here, powered by Stark repulsor technology. But right away, this just has Harry like, I thought these suits could fly. which is a very valid first impression. But at this stage, Otto's not comfortable with running this suit's flight off of the arc reactor in addition to its modifications. So it's one of those things where it's like better safe than sorry. And following this, Harry sees another device sitting off to the side. So he asks Otto, what is it? And Otto tells him that he's not sure because it's not connected to the network. So Harry's like, wait, network? So following this, Otto tells Harry to put on the helmet because he wants to show him something. And when Harry puts it on, he sees a number of red dots across the map. So Otto tells him, all this stuff runs on a secure network that links all the dedicated level 1 proprietary tech together. Each of those red dots is another piece of Stark tech, like the other suits, an arc node, or any dedicated AI on the network. But what you're looking at here is a snapshot of the network from 2 days ago. This is what it looks like now. And as soon as Otto switches it to real time, there's a whole lot more dots on the screen. Because between last night and 6 AM this morning, over 100 pieces of Stark tech just popped up. And Otto's not sure if they're old or dormant, if it's tech that's just waking up, or if it's something completely new. So from here, this begins Harry's investigation of figuring out what exactly is going on. And though we're not shown like every step of the way, because to do that, Harry would probably need his own series, which I would not mind seeing, just to be clear. But continuing this, we jump forward 1 month, which at this point places us not long after Peter's run-in with the Shocker, or to be more specific, Peter's second encounter with the Shocker, which at the time we knew back in issue 2, Harry was watching. So picking up from the events in issue 2, we find that Harry actually approached the Shocker to find out where he got his equipment. But with Harry coming here and saying, I think you have something that doesn't belong to you. Initially, the Shocker believes that Harry is trying to stop him from making off with all this money. So he tries to shock Harry, but Harry just shuts the gloves down. And he even tells Shocker, I turned them off because I'm not here for the money. I'm here for the gloves. Where'd you get them? So the Shocker's like, hey, if I tell you where I got the gloves, I can keep the money. So Harry just tells him, sure. So the Shocker's just like, okay, boom. So I was robbing this guy in his apartment, right? Turns out he must have died, had a heart attack or something, sitting in his favorite chair. Anyway, there was a light, and that terrorist kid, Stark, he was talking about something and the light cut off, and these gloves were just sitting there. So I put them on. Which right here, this lets Harry know that Tony Stark is still alive. But just after telling this story, the Shocker figures that he can catch Harry slipping, because he doesn't want to give these gloves up. So he goes for the sneak attack, and Harry's not fazed. So the Shocker's like, sorry, I didn't, you don't understand. My wife, she's sick, and I'm sorry. And it's like, man, this dude got a default lie that he goes back to in emergency situations. And it didn't work in this one, because Harry took the gloves and now he's out of there. And following this, we jump forward to what is now 2 months ago, where we get a look at Peter and Harry having that drink, which at this point places us now like weeks before, if not perhaps even days before, they more or less had that double date where Peter and MJ got to meet Gwen. Because it's here where after initially unmasking Peter, the two of these guys have their first talk and get to know each other. Because at this point, Harry's just suggesting that they bring their wives to dinner. While Peter, on the other hand, he's like, let's see how this drink goes first. And as we know, the conversation, it goes well. But it's here where we also see, at the time, Harry asked Peter if Tony Stark appeared to him out of thin air and gave him his suit. And Peter told him there was more to it than that, but yeah, that's pretty much what happened. So of course, Peter then asked Harry if he got his suit the same way. To where then Harry's like, no, he had to find out the hard way. Which then had what at this time was a suspicious Peter like, well, what do you mean by that? So Harry openly tells him, because he's like, well, after Stark was involved with the death of my parents, I inherited my father's company. Then I was basically given Stark's company also. After that, when I was reading through all the Stark family secrets, I found out that the people who gave me this company might just be the most evil people in the history of the world. And that it's possible that they, not Stark, are who really had my parents' blood on their hands, which I find unacceptable. So for Peter, this now has him like, yeah, that qualifies as the hard way. And after that, Harry asks Peter if he knows why Stark picked him. So Peter tells him how the message from Tony mentioned that he was supposed to have a different life and how he's supposed to be a hero. And as soon as Peter heard it, he knew deep down inside it was true. So for a moment here, the both of them come to an agreement where they're like, hey, we got to do something about this, because that's what heroes do. And really, it's an interesting way to end this flashback, with these guys agreeing to the idea of that's what heroes do. Because following this, we head forward to the present, where at this point, Harry's just willing to do whatever's necessary. And it's almost like because he knows they're up against some of the most evil people that his world has ever seen, it justifies him doing whatever it takes to take them down. because it's here where we see him talking to Bullseye, who prior to this was dropped off via drone delivery from issue 3, but come to find out over the past month, Harry has been peeling him out of his suit, only to find out underneath he has an embedded exoskeleton under his skin, which in itself is just Harry getting started with this brutal interrogation, because he wants answers, but Bullseye's not worried about the pain. Because for a moment here, when Harry asks him about his eye, he tells Harry after his master lost his brother and sisters tore theirs out in solidarity, which I would imagine his master would be Henry Duggery, Captain Britain. But he goes on to tell Harry that he has no idea what it's like to have that type of devotion. But Harry doesn't question this devotion for a moment. He knows this guy is devoted to his masters, all of them. And Harry's devotion is towards getting the truth. And he's gonna do whatever he needs to this guy to get him to talk. And there's even a moment here where Bullseye tells him that he's seen it all already. Everyone thinks they want to be a hero until it costs something, and it always does. We make sure of that. Then we get to see what you really are. Which right there just has me at the point where I gotta reiterate my concerns for Gwen because of the way that things are lining up. But as it stands for Harry, because he has this guy locked away in a room where Harry can come and go as he pleases, he doesn't feel the least bit threatened by this guy. Because it's here where Harry tells him, "My father always talked about the difference between being a boy and a man. And maybe he was right, but maybe you are too. Am I a boy or a man? Am I a hero or something else? I guess we're about to find out." To where after this, I just imagine the screen going black and Bullseye just screaming in pain. Like, "Oh, I was just trying to be tough. I'll tell you everything." And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/DopeSpill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.